agree with what you have said so far.
Yeah, and I think Donald Trump has done a great job. He's signed a lot of executive orders that are campaign promises. He's had a lot of fights on his hands. He's had a lot of cabinet people that he's wanted, shot down, and he's had to fight for. But he's also put in some great people in place too, and he's installed some really strong individuals in our government, and and I think he's trying to make the world a safer place for everyone, not just United States citizens. And I think he wants to make America great again. I think he wants to bring jobs back. I think he wants to see people prosper. I honestly think this country's been very, very good to this man. He's had a life most people can't and won't ever be able to dream of, and he wants to give back. Who else? Why? He didn't need this job. I mean, a guy like that he didn't need the headaches that go along with being a world leader. He's not just a leader in America at this point. He's becoming a world leader. And I think that countries like China and South Korea and Japan are now depending on his strength to turn the North Korean situation around. If you notice, they're not actually committing to anything other than, well, let's do something, but they're not saying what. And he's saying, hey, he's got a nuclear powered sub and a battleship over there. And he's installed the THAAD system, the anti-missile defense system in South Korea at America's expense right now. That's doing a lot in a short period of time, if you ask me. None of our allies have done anything other than talk. And he's held the door
Dan,
open.
Dan, I'd like to take just a moment to welcome back my friend Debbie in Northeast Texas. Debbie, you're absolutely right. The storm knocked me out. I've had to switch phones. I told Dan we're going to cut the show short in about 10, 15 minutes, and we're covering what Trump has done during the past 100 days.
Yeah, and I think he's done a great job. I understand that he gets up and goes to work. The first 100 days, there hasn't been a day where, I know he's traveling between Florida and the White House, and some people are making a big stink about that, but give the guy a break. He's got a family, like anybody else. He's got other interests. He's given up most of his business interests in order to run this country. And I think he works every day.
His daughter has really, really stepped up to the plate, too. I've seen her. There was a really good interview of, I think it was either Charlie Rose or Gayle King. Somebody recently interviewed her, and she's doing a fantastic job in holding everything together, while her dad's occupied with being president.
You're talking about it. Ivanka, is that how you say her name? Yeah, and she's given up her business.
Yes.
In order to become an advisor to the White House. And she's a relatively young woman, just 5 years old, yeah. And I think the whole Trump family are very grateful what you call grateful Americans, which is a very distinct difference from what we had before. Barack Obama was an American hater. He hated the American way of life. He hated the Christian way of life. He's a Muslim under disguise, and he was a traitor and a treasonous bastard. And Donald Trump and his family realize that God has blessed them with an incredibly beautiful, wonderful life, and they want to give back through public service. And it has been a difficult transition for all of them. And they, like I said earlier, they didn't need this headache. And now he's finding himself on the world stage in a very serious crisis. What can you say about
Dan? I think the biggest mistake that North Korean dictator could make right now would be to dare to attack one of our battleships or to attack an American city. I believe we would obliterate North Korea off the map.
I think it's what has to be done if he does that. And I think he's like a schoolyard punk bully. He's a lot of hot wind, but when it comes really down to the fist fight, he'd probably be, after the first smack in the face, he'd be the first one to turn and run. And I don't think there's a lot of substance to him. He wants to be the big, strong man, but he's not there yet. And the rest of the world is correct. They can't afford to let him become that person. And that is where we're at right now. It is we can't afford to let him become a major nuclear superpower like Russia or the United States. We can't give him that capability. It has to be taken away from him before he does some serious damage to some other to the world population. And it's the bottom line. I mean, I think Donald Trump is sees that, understands that, and he's going to do his best to make sure that doesn't happen, and that the world is a safer, better place for everyone, not just America, but for all of our allies, Japan, South Korea, even China, and in a lot of regards, Russia, who's come out and said that military action would be unacceptable in the United States. But they're, like I said before, they haven't exactly said what they would do, And I think because they're saying that because they're not going to threaten us, they understand the severity of the situation as well.
Dan, I'd like to weigh in for just a moment too on a previous guest. Several months back, maybe even a year. In fact, he's been on the show a couple of times. You may have heard a couple. Lawrence Vernadeau. He is a world traveler and author, and he has gone to something like 150 different countries. Apparently, he's independently wealthy enough that he can do that, and that's great. And he's writing books. He's written, I remember the names of them right now off the top of my head, but you can do a search on Amazon for him, Lawrence Vernadeau. Well, anyway, North Korea does allow a token number of people to come and visit. Of course, the entire visit is totally orchestrated by them. You are shown what they want you to see. You cannot just freely roam around and see what they don't want you to see, which is the starving population over there, that literally the common average people are starving to death. You're taken through these elaborate grocery stores that are beautifully stocked, but that stuff is only available to the upper echelon ruling class and the elite. Common people never get to touch that stuff. Propaganda films are shown even to the visitors, even to an American like Lawrence Vernadeau. Propaganda films are shown about how terribly evil the United States is and how we attacked North Korea and how what a dreadful opponent and enemy we are, and how North Korea has got to defend itself against the dreadful, evil United States. And this whole campaign of brainwashing that they do on their own people, they try to do that with world visitors that come through as token visitors. Of course, nobody's buying it. And Lawrence Vernadeau was just appalled and stunned that they would even try that. And it's worth listening to my show that had him as a guest. He's on 2 or 3 different shows. But this particular one, he spends about 30 minutes talking about North Korea and how they put this image forth, or try to guests who visit their country, and it's just total bullshit, total facade. And Lawrence Vernadeau is the man's name, and he's been there firsthand, and it's bad, really, really bad.
It's interesting you can bring that up, because today, preparing for tonight's show, I read that they've actually set up a city near the border of South Korea. They call Peacetown, I think it's translated from their language. That's a ruse. That it has, like an upper middle class type of architecture and lifestyle, but it isn't what the rest of North Korea is like, and it's a propaganda city. And who do we know set something like that up in the past, in the 20th century? Adolf Hitler set up concentration camps to look, certain concentration camps to look like they weren't that bad to the Red Cross and other entities across the world until the end of World War II. We actually found out the horrors that took place. So it seems like dictators tend to do these kind of things for propaganda purposes. They want to they think they're fooling the rest of the world with their peace town cities and this kind of thing. And you're right, I don't doubt anything that the guy said, that they want to give an impression that it's like, I guess, leave it to Beaver over there, but it's not. The people are extremely oppressed, up to the point where you can't even have a certain haircut.
Yes.
But you know that. I mean, there are only 3 official haircuts